Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room, looking ahead to another fantastic sporting weekend. And hopefully, whether you're watching, playing, or whether you're just sitting on your couch, you're going to enjoy the sporting weekend as much as we are. Let's start with rugby, and it's back to United Rugby Championship action this weekend. A break in the Six Nations as the Scots Edinburgh take on Zebras and Ospreys take on Leinster this evening. Both those games kick off at 25 minutes to 10. Tomorrow, it is a massive day in South African rugby because it's Derby Day. It's the Lions against the Stormers at Ellis Park in Johannesburg, and Loftus Versfeld will be the venue for the Bulls against the Sharks. Of course, these two clashes always conjure up great rivalry most of the time between fans in the same household. Yes, the father might support the Bulls and the son might support the Sharks. It all depends on your age, as the tide has turned since the old Northern Transvaal Western Province days have turned into the Bulls and the Stormers, since the old Transvaal and Natal days have turned into the Lions and the Sharks. And the youngsters these days, they don't necessarily support the team that plays in the city they live in. They normally support the team which has the player that they support. So, for example, a Siya Kolisi or an Eben Etzebeth, if they are fit and playing for the Sharks, they'll be supported by the kids who love those players because of their Springbok interest. Me, well, I've got to be honest with you, I still have blue blood running through my veins when it comes to rugby and red blood running through my veins when it comes to football. So, anyway, Lions against Stormers at 2:30, Bulls against the Sharks at 5 o'clock, a double-header of absolutely fantastic rugby. Some of the greatest players that are in South African rugby at the moment will be on show in those two clashes tomorrow. After that, it's Benetton versus Ulster, followed by Munster against Llanelli Scarlets. Connaught take on Cardiff at 25 to 10. And then on Sunday, it's the Dragons against the Glasgow Warriors. And then, as you would have heard earlier on in the week, it's Varsity Cup action coming up on Monday. It's the UCT Ikeys against NWU, the Marties against the Shimlers, Wits against UP Tuks, and UJ against CUT. So those are the big matches that come up on the Monday. And then the following week, on the 22nd of February, it's the Bulls against the Lions again in the United Rugby Championship. Of course, these two sides missed out after the Currie Cup final week in South Africa in the end of last year, so they are behind in terms of results. So what can we expect at the weekend? Well, the dream of building something epic at the Emirates Lions is still on the card. Main reason why some of the young stars of that team have decided to stay at the franchise. The current captain of the side, Frankie Horn, has extended his contract with the franchise for another 3 years. He is sharing the responsibilities with Marius Lowe, but the decision to stay in Johannesburg is seen as a coup, with a number of clubs trying to poach the Lions star. Horn isn't the only one. Just the past week, Asenati Ntabakanye rejected an offer from French giants Toulouse to stay in Johannesburg, while the SAA player Henko van Wyk also put pen to paper at the Lions for another 3 years. SJ Kotze and Arif Skuman also put their signatures to stay at the Lions. The retention of the promising young hooker and is seen as a massive boost for Lions rugby. The only thing about Lions rugby is the poultry support that they get at Ellis Park. I understand, yes, I understand it is not in the best area in the world. I get it. But you know what? If the fans go out in force, people will go and watch the game. And the Lions are doing their part. They're winning games. They're playing great, attractive rugby. And that obviously is always a key. Now, the other game, unfinished business is what it's being called. It might not quite be revenge for the Vodacom Bulls. They'll face the Hollywood Bet Sharks in the derby at Loftus Versfeld. The Bulls went into the Christmas fixture against the same team in the Durban, hoping for a win, but came agonizingly close and only had themselves to blame for the defeat. It was a game where the Bulls dominated the closing stages and caused Coach Jake White to question whether he and his management team were doing the right thing, seeing as they created so many opportunities and still came up on the losing side. White said the game wasn't anything to do with revenge when quizzed about it at the start of the Bulls' preparations for the return match, but did say for him it was a must-win for his side. And well done to them after their 1-point victory over the Stormers, their first one at the Cape Town Stadium. So there you go. Big matches this weekend. Local derbies will bring you all the action and reaction from those matches when we chat to you on Monday. What do the logs look like, though? That, of course, is the key important factor. Well, Leinster still top the table, having played 10 games along with the Glasgow Warriors, way out in front on Leinster with 48 points. Glasgow Warriors have got 37. Leinster, incidentally, played 10, won 10. Brilliant for them. Absolutely brilliant. The Vodacom Bulls are in third place with 35 points, game in hand, so they could get up into that magical second place. Of course, that second place on the log would guarantee them a home advantage when it comes to the last rounds of the competition. The Sharks are there in fourth place, so a big swing. It could be a 10-point swing here. Remember, of course, you can pick up 5 points if you win with a bonus point, so it could be a big swing for the Sharks against the Bulls this weekend. And then Cardiff are on 29 points, game ahead of the Sharks, one more game played than the Sharks, also 29 points from their 10 games. Llanelli Scarlets, 27 points from their games in sixth place. Munster, 26 points from their 10 games. Edinburgh, 24 points. Ulster, 23, and the Stormers, 23. So all the way down to 12th place. Everybody very, very close indeed. Even the Lions can leapfrog because they have 2 games in hand over everybody, and they, of course, only have 19 points from their 8 games, 4 wins and 4 losses, but a couple of wins and everything can change. The Dragons and the Zebras, unfortunately, way down at the bottom. The Dragons only have 8 points, just a single win and 9 losses, while the Zebras have 3 wins and 7 losses in the competition. So it promises to be a great weekend of rugby, and we will bring you the review of all those matches on our program on Monday. That's from the boardroom to the locker room. Right, let's talk tennis, shall we? And it's the ladies' action that's been out and about, but there is a bit of fury around the US Open. The Tennis Association there announced a radical overhaul of the US Open mixed doubles tournament, unveiling plans to stage the competition as a standalone event in the week before the main men's and women's singles draws get underway. In a dramatic move that was greeted with criticism in some quarters, the US Open organizer said the mixed doubles event using an amended rulebook would now take place over 2 days of competition on the 19th and 20th of August at Flushing Meadows. The tournament will be made up of 16 teams, with 8 teams earning direct entry based on their combined singles ranking, played alongside 8 wildcard entrants. Each match will be played as best of 3 sets, but sets will be abbreviated to first to 4 games with no advantage scoring, tiebreaks at 4 all, and a 10-point match tiebreak in lieu of a third set. The final will be the best of 3 to 6 games, but also featuring no advantage scoring with tiebreaks at 6 games all and a 10-point match tiebreaker instead of a third set. All matches will be played at the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Centre's prime Arthur Ashe Stadium and Louis Armstrong Stadium courts. Now, the executive director, Lou Scher of the U.S. Tennis Association, said he couldn't be more excited to introduce the groundbreaking innovation to the 2025 U.S. Open Championship. However, Paul McNamee, the Australian former world doubles #1, was amongst critics of the shake-up, saying it would devalue the U.S. Open's mixed doubles title. Sets to 4 games in a Grand Slam, he questioned. 16 teams with 8 based on singles rankings, 8 wildcards. I'm sorry, but the US Open will not produce a bona fide mixed doubles winner. Devalued from a Grand Slam title to an exhibition. Let's just say I'm in shock. Poland's Jan Zelensky, a winner of the mixed doubles at the Australian Open in Wimbledon last year, described the revamp as sad. Last year's US Open's mixed doubles winners, Italian duos Sara Errani and Andrea Vavassori, lambasted the decision in a statement on social media, labeling it a profound injustice. Yeah, maybe the US Open organizers should have had a conversation with the players. That would have been a good idea, don't you think? Right, let's have a look at what's going on the WTA Tour. It's been a big week for some unknowns and a poor week for world number one, Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff. They both were dumped out of the Qatar Open, the WTA 1000 event. The Belarusian world number one was beaten by Russian Ekaterina Alexandrova 3-6, 6-3, 7-6. Coco Gauff also beaten after both of them playing pretty much for the first time serious event since the Australian Open, and former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina eased into the last 16. She was the loser last week, getting through to the next round this week. Very good on the ladies tour as well. So that is what's going on the WTA ladies tour. Those tournaments will continue over the weekend. And then on the ATP Tour, that's the men's tour, there has been some interesting results over the last couple of days. And Canada's Denis Shapovalov completed a giant killing run to the Dallas Open title at the weekend, defeating Casper Ruud 7-6 and 6-3. He became the fifth player since 2020 to knock out the top three seeds on the way to an ATP title, and just the fourth player since 2009 to beat three top 10 rivals on the way to either a 250 or 500 level event. So lots of great action going on the men's tour, and apparently he is fit and well again. Who am I talking about? Of course, Novak Djokovic. So Djokovic will be back in action very soon indeed. Now, golf news through the course of the week. Common sense seems to be prevailing once again. Adam Scott says his meeting with the PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan and President Donald Trump last week was positive for getting the PGA and the LIV deal to reunite men's golf stars. The 44-year-old Australian said that at the PGA Genesis Invitational at Torrey Pines moved from Riviera due to wildfires in the Los Angeles area. LIV Golf debuted in 2022 with several top stars leaving the PGA Tour for the Upstart Series, prompting the PGA to ban them from their events. Major tournaments are now the only outlet for LIV and PGA Tour stars to compete against one another. And this week, the Royal and Ancient also said that they would allow the players in the LIV Golf competition to play in the Open. It has been going on. The Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund backers of LIV Golf have been in talks with PGA Tour officials about the investment deal since a framework agreement was unveiled in June of 2023. But it's 14 months since the first deadline to complete talks on uniting LIV and the PGA under one banner, and no deal has yet been finalized. There have been concerns about a Saudi investment in a U.S. business by the Department of Justice, but Scott said Trump could be able to hasten completion of that deal. On the circuit of play scheduled for this week, it is at Fan Courts, the beautiful, beautiful golf course in George on the Garden Route, the wonderful Garden Route of South Africa. Underway there, the NTT Data Pro. And then, as I mentioned, it's the big one, the Genesis Invitational on the USPGA Tour. Next week, the Killarney Country Club in Johannesburg will host the Betway Big Easy Tour playoffs. And then the following week, it's back to the Royal Joburg East Course for the Hyundai Open, driven by Palisade, the Mexican Open, and then the magical Kenya Open, and then the big one at the end of the month, the Investec South African Open Championship. Promises to be a great, great event that is, of course, not only on the Sunshine Tour, but also on the DP World Tour. Now, of course, what formerly was the European Tour. You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these. Hi, I'm Louis Karpas. Join us for our review of the sporting weekend on Monday evening as we look back at the Premier League, we look back at the Nedbank Cup, the cricket action over the weekend, and we look forward to the ICC Champions Trophy that starts this week. That's From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Reviewed the sporting weekend that was. Right, let's talk cricket as we move along to the ICC Champions Trophy, which is coming up in a short while. That, of course, in Pakistan, and India not prepared to play there, but that will obviously continue on. That debate will continue on through the ages. Zimbabwe played Ireland in a one-day international, while New Zealand, of course, are also in action in warm-up matches. But in the Women's Premier League, the Gujarat Giants take on the Royal Challengers of Bangalore And that tournament, of course, getting underway just before the IPL. And locally tomorrow, it's the big one in South Africa. The Cricket South Africa One-Day Cup competition gets underway. A couple of fantastic games, a day game between the Eastern Cape Yati and the Northern Cape Heat, and then a day-night encounters at beautiful Newlands under the floodlights. Well, eventually, once the sun goes down at 8 o'clock at night, it'll be Western Province against the Lions. There should be some crackerjack action in that one. And then also a day-night game where the Northwest Dragons will play against the Knights. And then on the Women's Premier League that day, IPL Premier League, the Mumbai Indians take on the Delhi Capitals. On Sunday, it's the Mpumalanga Rhinos against the Tuskers, the Hollywood Dolphins against the Warriors, the Cricket South Africa emerging side against the Eastern Storm, the Limpopo Impalas against the Garden Route Badgers, and Boland take on the Multiply Titans. There's also the second one-day international on Sunday between Zimbabwe and Ireland, and the Gujarat Giants take on the UP Warriors in the Indian Premier League. On Monday, the Delhi Capitals play the Royal Challengers Bangalore. Tuesday, it's Zimbabwe against Ireland again, and then the Gujarat Giants play the Mumbai Indians. And then Wednesday action next week sees the Tuskers play the Limpopo Impalas, the Badgers play the Rhinos, the Northern Cape Heat play Cricket South Africa's emerging side, Eastern Storm play Eastern Cape, Western Province play the Northwest Dragons, and the Knights play against the Warriors. And then, of course, it is the start of the ICC Champions Trophy. Match 1 gets underway on the 19th of February, where Pakistan will play New Zealand in the opening game of that competition. Promises to be a crackerjack tournament. It's quick. It happens over a couple of weeks. There's no minnows, if you like, with regards to Zimbabwe and Ireland and so on, and teams that used to be great, like the West Indies. So fixtures for that couple of groups with the teams split into those groups. The protagonists for the title, obviously India will be the favourites, I guess. Pakistan, New Zealand, Bangladesh, India, Afghanistan, South Africa, Australia, England. That is your competition rules. New Zealand and Australia. So there it is. Those teams will be battling it out over a couple of weeks to see who is ICC Champions Trophy. Starts the 19th of February with the semi-finals on the 5th of March and the final on the 9th of March. So pretty much 3 weeks of cricketing action to get the ICC Champions Trophy underway. And straight after that, it is straight back, to the IPL competition. Now, motorsport news. And 2 months after leaving Red Bull following a disappointing 2024 campaign, Sergio Perez is working towards a return to Formula One with Cadillac, if you believe Spanish media. Perez, a 6-time Grand Prix winner, has been in talks with Cadillac to join the team in 2026 on a full-time basis. Cadillac recently did a deal with General Motors for their entry into Formula One, unable to produce their own engines until 2028. Cadillac is said to be in talks with Ferrari to buy a customer engine. According to the reports, Cadillac, which will be the 11th team to join the grid, has made hiring a veteran driver a priority. In 2024, Perez finished 224 points behind teammate and champion Max Verstappen, which prevented the duo from winning the Constructors' Championship. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri won that title for McLaren. And the Williams Formula One team have announced a long-term title sponsorship with Australian technology company Atlassian that will help them fight to rise back up the grid. The former champions, winners of 114 races and 9 constructors titles, but 9th out of the 10 teams last year will be known as Atlassian Williams when the season starts in Australia on the 16th of March. Yep, just a month or so away, and we're back in action on the Formula One Grand Prix circuit. All right, let's look at football now. And this weekend, the action will be fast and furious. Interestingly, a result in midweek in the Betway Premiership in South Africa, in which Mamelodi Sundown, unfortunately for them, are on the wrong end of a defeat. Doesn't often happen for them. 10 in a row wasn't going to be extended as they were beaten in midweek by TS Galaxy. Well, they don't go into any Premier League action this weekend locally in South Africa because the South African version of the Nedbank Cup gets underway again. And that means a break in the Betway Premiership. It is action fast and furious this weekend. Tonight, Durban City, one of the famous names from the old NFL days of football in South Africa, take on TS Galaxy. And then tomorrow, it's Maruma Gallants against AmaZulu. Orlando Pirates play Baroka FC. Kaizer Chiefs play Chippa United. And Sundowns on Sunday play Penny Home Defenders. Now, I wonder if Sundowns are going to do a Liverpool stunt and change pretty much their whole team and come up a cropper. Well, I doubt that they're going to do that. Nedbank Cup worth a lot of money in South African football. I'll have all those results for you on Monday evening. And then, of course, it is back to the action in the English Premier League this weekend. After one or two surprises last week in the FA Cup, the biggest, of course, being Liverpool being knocked out, and a bit of a scare for Nottingham Forest in midweek. They had to go to a penalty shootout to eventually get over the line and into the next round of the competition. The draw has now been made for the FA Cup. I'll tell you, there are some interesting ties for the FA Cup. Quite a few Premier League sides have been drawn against each other. It's Aston Villa against Cardiff, Bournemouth against Wolves, Manchester City have got Plymouth Argyle, the giant killers of Liverpool. And I know Plymouth Argyle will not be going, oh, I'm worried about Manchester City. Plymouth Argyle will be going, what a payday to go and play at Manchester City, a fantastic venue to play at. And they'll be hoping to cause an upset over a Manchester City side that in midweek will also beaten again by Real Madrid in the first leg of the UEFA Champions League. Manchester City have got a home tie, this time against Fulham, also from the Premier League. I don't think they'll be too upset with that. Newcastle will play Brighton, another big Premier League clash. Preston play Burnley, and Nottingham Forest drew Ipswich Town. That's another Premier League clash. Ipswich Town languishing towards the bottom of the table, Nottingham Forest the top of the table. And Crystal Palace play Millwall. So those fixtures for you again for the FA Cup, Saturday the 1st of March. Villa, Cardiff, Bournemouth, Wolves, Man City, Plymouth Argyle, Man United, Fulham, Newcastle, Brighton, Preston, Burnley, Nottingham Forest, Ipswich, and Crystal Palace against Millwall. Let's look at this weekend. It is the English Premier League action back on the fields of play, and it's going to be a crackerjack weekend, as it always is. Valentine's Day fixture tonight. Will it be a Valentine's Day massacre for either of Brighton or Chelsea? That's tonight's fixture. Tomorrow, it's Leicester against Arsenal, Aston Villa against Ipswich, Fulham against Nottingham Forest, Manchester City playing Newcastle. That game always dishes up 6 or 7 goals. Southampton against Bournemouth, West Ham against Brentford, while Crystal Palace play Everton. Sunday sees Liverpool against Wolves, and arguably the biggest clash of the weekend, Spurs against Manchester United. Two teams that are battling this season, cannot get a run of form going, and one of those two teams are going to be or just above relegation zone come the end of the weekend, unless, of course, it's a draw, but then they'll both be in no better position than either of them are in at the moment. That is the Valentine's Day edition, with lots of love from the Beyond the Teams to you, as we bring you every Monday through Friday a edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Tonight's one, just a touch more love than normal. Be nice to each other. Love each other on this Valentine's Day. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Bye for now.